If your first graders are still counting every single dot, counter, or object one by one, subitizing is one number sense skill that can help. Subitizing is the ability to recognize a small quantity without counting each object individually. And while it might seem like a small skill, it helps students begin seeing how numbers are made up of smaller parts, which later supports addition, subtraction, making 10, and mental math. In this video, I'm sharing 5 simple ways to practice subitizing in first grade without adding another complicated activity to your math block. Let's get started. The first way to practice subitizing is with dot cards. This is one of the simplest ways to build the skill because you only need a few cards with different dot arrangements. Show students a card for just a few seconds and then hide it. Ask, how many did you see? Or how did you see it? You might have one student who sees 6 as 3 and 3. Another student might see 4 and 2. Neither student had to count every dot one at a time. They are beginning to recognize smaller groups within the larger quantity. Those conversations are important because subitizing isn't really about answering quickly. It's about helping students develop flexible mental images of numbers. The second strategy is using dice patterns. Dice work well because many students already recognize these arrangements. Instead of asking students to count every dot, roll a die or show a dice card and ask them to identify the quantity. Then ask them to explain what they notice. For example, when students see 5 on a die, they may recognize 4 dots around the outside and 1 in the center. You can also begin showing 2 dice once students become comfortable. Instead of immediately asking for the total, ask, what did you see on each die? This helps students recognize the parts before combining them. Eventually, that same thinking begins supporting addition. Students are no longer just seeing a group of dots, they are beginning to see numbers and relationships. The third strategy is one of my favorites, 10 frame flashes. 10 frames give students a structure for seeing quantities in relation to 5 and 10. Show a 10 frame for just a few seconds and then hide it. Ask students how many counters they saw, and again ask how they knew. Suppose the 10 frame shows 8. One student might say, I saw 5 and 3 more. Another student might notice that only 2 spaces were empty and know that the quantity must be 8. Both students are reasoning about the number instead of counting every counter individually. This becomes incredibly useful later when students begin making 10 and using addition and subtraction strategies. A 10 frame helps students see the 8 isn't just 8 separate objects. 8 can be 5 and 3, or it can be thought of as 2 less than 10. The fourth strategy is using small counting collections. Counting collections are usually associated with counting objects accurately, but they can also help students move toward recognizing groups within larger quantities. Instead of leaving every object scattered across the table, have students organize the collection. They might create groups of 2, groups of 5, a familiar dice arrangement, or even organize objects into a 10 frame structure. Then ask, how did organizing the objects help you see how many there were? This is where students begin moving away from counting one object at a time. They start seeing groups, and seeing groups is an important bridge between basic counting and a more flexible number sense. For example, a student might look at 8 objects and recognize a group of 5 and a group of 3. That same idea will eventually connect to the equation 5 plus 3 equals 8. The fifth strategy is to give students opportunities to practice subitizing independently once they understand the skill. This might be through cut and paste activities or color by code worksheets. The important part is keeping the activity structure familiar. Students shouldn't have to learn a brand new set of directions every time the number sense skill changes. For example, students might look at a dot pattern, determine the quantity, find the matching numeral, and color according to a code. Once students understand that routine, you can change the numbers or representation without changing what students are expected to do. That gives students meaningful number sense practice while also helping them become more independent during math time. You can also combine these ideas into a really simple daily routine. Show a dot pattern, die, or 10 frame. Give students a few seconds to look silently. Ask them how many they saw. Then ask how did they see it. Let students turn and talk or share a few different strategies. Finally, connect what they saw to a numeral, drawing, or equation. That entire routine can take just a few minutes. And because the structure stays predictable, students can spend their time thinking about the mathematics instead of figuring out what they're supposed to do. Subitizing does not need to be a separate 30-minute lesson. Start small. Flash a dot card, roll a die, use a 10 frame, organize a small counting collection, then give students opportunities to practice those same number relations independently. A few minutes of consistent practice can help students move from counting every object one by one towards actually seeing how numbers are structured. For more low prep number sense ideas for first grade, you can explore my first grade number sense starter library and my first grade number sense daily math routines 36-week growing bundle. I'll leave the links below. And in the next video, I'll share simple ways to practice comparing numbers within 20 in first grade, including how to build the meaning of greater than and less than before jumping straight to the symbols. See you there.